Alrighty, welcome in everyone to just another edition of Just Another College Football Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tommy Brzee. It is Tuesday, September 30th. Sorry for a little bit of late reaction show, but we do have a reaction to the incredible Week 5 that we just had. We'll get into all the big games first. We'll start with Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia. A couple of curses still reign true in those two games. Then we'll get to LSU, Ole Miss, as well as USC, Illinois in that first slate. Then we'll get into a little bit of a whip around a number of different games to get to. Wake Forest had one stolen from them against Georgia Tech. Florida State goes down against Virginia, and a number of other things I want to touch on. And then we'll finish it off. We'll get into some winners and losers from this weekend, and I'll give some final updates as we get out of the show. A couple of changes coming to the show here pretty soon. But let's go ahead and jump into this, and let's talk about these big games that have gone on this past weekend. Let's start up there in Happy Valley. We'll kind of work our way back through the day as it went through, but this is kind of a tough game to parse through. It's kind of a tough game to come out with very, very aggressive beliefs because you come in and Oregon jumps out to a 17-3 lead. Obviously, the offense has started incredibly slow, but they jump out to a 17-3 lead early in the second half, and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be a story of Penn State fell way short, and this thing is not getting better. It's actually getting worse in these big-time games, and then they find a way back into it. They force overtime, and they fall short eventually. So I'm left a little bit confused. Now, there's some massive reasons for Penn State fans to be upset about this, and we'll talk about that more here in a second, but the reality of the matter is this Oregon team deserves a lot of praise for what they did on Saturday night, and this was entirely a program. This was entirely a program win, and I've been thinking about it since this game went on. I can't think of a program in the country that is more in line with each other than Oregon is. And it's not necessarily to say Oregon's the best team in the country or the best coaching staff in the country or the best play callers, although they're very close to all of those things. The reality of the matter is Dan Lanning comes with a certain amount of energy every single week, and we saw it in the post-game presser. He comes with an aggressive amount of energy every single week, and all of the players follow suit. There's not a player that's not trying their hardest. There's not a player that's not cheering their hardest if they're not in the game. There's not a player that walks into that stadium not wanting to win more than anything else in the world, and that cannot be overstated. It's obviously not something that jumps off the page or is very tangible, but you can feel it. You can feel that this team emulates what their coach is and the way that he approaches things, as well as the coordinators. They are incredibly aggressive in between the 40 and the 40 or the 35 and the 35. They're going to go for it essentially every time on fourth down because that's who they are. That's who Dan Lanning is, and everyone has followed that suit. This was the perfect example of that. It's a game where you jump out to a lead, you're playing physical, you're playing good football, a team gets back into it, and you're able to close it out because you have that toughness all throughout your program. It's not just with the head coach, it's not just with the quarterback, or just with a couple of defensive players. It's with absolutely everyone. It's another reason why they can continue to bring in new guys and be able to get them to play really quickly because everyone's on the same page. You know, Bear Alexander comes in from USC, and we're talking about him. Can he be this impact player? Can he step up? Can he become the player that he is more than capable of being? He went to the right place because everyone around him is working their butts off and they're doing the exact thing that Bear Alexander needed to do. And he's played really good football for them, including in this football game. But the guy I want to talk about is Dante Moore. I think he is the story of this game. Obviously, Penn State is a massive story as well, and we'll get to that. But going into Happy Valley and going 29 for 39, 248, and 3 scores is outright insane. He made all the throws he needed to make on the run, in the pocket, navigated the pocket incredibly well. The coolest thing about this kid is he's a very gutsy runner. Not necessarily an elite runner, not an elite athlete by any means, but absolutely a guy that if you need 5 yards, he's going to find a way to get you 5 yards. He did it a number of times in this football game. And I'll be honest, I was totally wrong about him. Now, I knew he was an elite talent, and I thought he was going to play good football. I didn't think he was going to be all the way here. I didn't think his head was going to be clear enough to go into a stadium like that and play that clean of football. It was incredible to watch, and as of right now, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a quarterback playing better football than Dante Moore. For the defense, played really good football. The fourth quarter obviously got on top of Oregon, no doubt about that, but you hold a Penn State team to 4 yards per carry, you're going to beat them, plain and simple. If you can keep Nick Singleton and Katron Allen from being downright dominant, frankly, in a game, you're going to be able to beat Penn State. That's exactly what happened in this game. And frankly, you probably could have beaten them in regulation if you made one more play defensively. But at the end of the day, a very strong defensive performance, at least from where I was standing. But we talked about it. This one was about the Oregon program. It wasn't necessarily about one individual player. It wasn't about anyone doing anything absolutely spectacular. I think they had 3 guys over 60 yards receiving. They had a couple of rushers over 60 yards, but none over 80. It was just everyone coming together, doing what they needed to do, doing their job, and doing it with incredible passion and energy. And that can't be overstated. In a day of college football where there's so many teams that seem to be disjointed and all over the place, like Penn State looked in this game, it cannot be overstated how much it matters for 115 plus the coaching staff to be moving in unison. It's a very hard thing to do, and Dan Lanning has pulled it off incredibly, incredibly well. As for Penn State, 2 things can be true. You did not have to win this game. You absolutely can make the playoff. If you find a way to beat Indiana, you can lose to Ohio State, you can still make the playoff. You also had to win this game. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but you're looking at it right now, and from where I'm standing, and look, we can make the argument that they were closer. We can make the argument that they forced this thing to overtime when it looked like it could have been a blowout. All of that stuff is good stuff. There's no doubt about that. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day because you still look up at the scoreboard at the end of the thing and you are down by 6 points. That is the end-all be-all of this football game. That's the end-all be-all of the last 11 years of Penn State football. They got to win one of these games because the reality is for Penn State football moving forward, yes, you can make the playoff. Yes, you can go 10-2 and you can do all the things that you wanted to do this season. I'm not trusting you when you meet an Oregon, when you meet a Texas, when you meet a Georgia or an Ole Miss or an LSU in the playoff because there's something missing there. And it's hard to describe as a good, talented football team that isn't all that far away from some of these elite teams in the country. They just can't get it done. And I think there's problems with play calling. I think Drew Aller is not the quarterback that a lot of people, including myself at times, has made him out to be. I think this is just a team that is not all the way there. The confidence is not to the level that Oregon has, which I don't know how many teams have the confidence level that Oregon has, but at the end of the day, it's not there. Your star quarterback is not playing good enough football. You're not calling plays that are really conducive to a team that can't handle a lot of movement, can't handle a lot of motion because they made a lot of mistakes in pre-snap that they wouldn't have if they didn't get so cute on the offensive side of the ball. You have an offensive line that was meant to be one of the very best in the country. They can't push around anyone right now. So there's a lot of problems with this Penn State team. It's not just Drew Aller. It's not just James Franklin. Doesn't change that a lot of this falls on their shoulders. And Drew Aller has to make that pass late in the game. Now, why are you calling a pass play when you've been able to run the ball late in that game? I don't know. But at the end of the day, you're in a position now where you're a Penn State team that, again, you're Penn State. You're a good team that's going to be able to go beat UCLA and Northwestern over the next 2 weeks. Then you're going to go to Iowa and probably get a win. Then you go to Ohio State, you're probably going to lose. Then you find a way to play Indiana. If you win that one, great. It doesn't change the narrative around you. You have to find a way to win a playoff game. It's not to say that they can't. There's still a lot to like about this football team. But this was a chance, and it was about as good of an opening as you're going to get a young quarterback coming on the road to a tough environment at night where you have about as close to talent level as you're going to have to these Oregons and Ohio States, and you can't find a way to get it done. There's not really much more to say. Obviously, there is still plenty of time to get things together and to play better football, but at a certain point, you are who you are, and as of right now, Penn State's a team that cannot win a national title because they can't beat the Oregons of the world. But we'll see what they can do moving forward. Obviously, plenty of time left for Oregon. They get a bye week and then a huge one against Indiana, which will be really, really fun to watch. But at the end of the day, this is just another missed opportunity for Penn State and another one for Oregon where a lot of people were questioning them coming in, and they shut the door on that very quickly. Alabama beats Georgia. I've heard that number of times before, just like Penn State, and Georgia and Kirby Smart, they can't beat Alabama. It can't be explained. It's a very real thing. I don't know why, but it is. They coach this game just a little bit differently every single time they see that script A on the other sideline, no matter who the coach is. It's really hard to describe. Now, all the talk will be about the 4th down with 13 seconds left. And a couple of things I want to make very clear. I don't love it. I would have gone for the field goal, first of all. Second of all, if you're going to go fast, I would have gone with another running back rather than Cash Jones, and that's been talked about plenty. And third, if you're going to go fast, go straight forward. don't go to the outside. I don't really know why that's a controversial thing that some people do if you're gonna do that. And I don't necessarily disagree with the approach of that idea. We're gonna go for it on fourth down, let's go quickly, let's try to get these guys off balance. That's all well and good, and that has worked a number of times. If you're gonna do it, you have a 225-ish pound quarterback, run a QB sneak. Run something that goes straight forward, that you don't have to, the defensive line can't get their feet set quickly, and the offensive line just has to move forward. They don't have to do any combo blocks, which one got blown up, and that's why you didn't get the fourth down. So just a couple of things there where I understand the idea. I understand what they're trying to do. With 13 minutes left in the game, I would have tied it and just kind of played out the rest of this thing, because Alabama did not score in the second half of this football game. You kind of had a little bit of control of it. If you tie that game, I think Alabama gets a little bit nervous and maybe you're able to close it out. But at the end of the day, Alabama's able to get the stop. And the other thing is, that's not where the game was lost for Georgia. Plain and simple, that fourth down call was not where the game was lost. It was lost on third down. It was lost by Ty Simpson playing as good a football as you will see any quarterback play maybe the entirety of the season. He was incredible in the first half. He was absolutely lights out, and it wasn't like he was getting 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s. He was getting 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12s, 3rd and 10s, and he was ripping the ball in the tight windows. He played incredible football. And a lot of people are questioning the Georgia defense, and there's plenty of things to question about the Georgia defense. I'm not arguing that at all, but when a quarterback is playing at that level, you're not going to be able to do a lot. Just plain and simple. Even when Bama wasn't able to run the ball, and they haven't been able to run the ball, if there's a quarterback playing at that level of football, you're going to have a really tough time slowing him down. That's just the plain truth of the matter, and it's not necessarily to say the Georgia defense did a great job in this game. They didn't. They really did struggle early on in this game, but at the end of the day, Ty Simpson made some throws that there's just not much you're going to be doing with. And the Alabama pass offense in general, as good as you're going to find in the country. I think Ohio State could match them if they really wanted to, and that's something we'll talk about in the next segment. But at the end of the day, they have so many dudes on the outside. Isaiah Horton is a beast. Ryan Williams isn't even the best receiver on this football team. Jeremy Bernard is an absolute incredible player that is the best receiver on this football team. They do need to figure out some things. The run game needs to be better if they want to win a national title. I think that's without argument at the end of the day. But this team, if they're going to be able to throw the ball at that level, they're going to be able to beat a whole lot of teams. Plain and simple. They opened this game with 2 14-play, 70-plus yard drives. They go 9 for 9 on third down to start this thing. There's no better execution in college football that you'll find. And it's not all Georgia's fault. There were definitely some openings that Georgia needs to be better about. But at the end of the day, that execution level from that Alabama passing offense was just downright ridiculous. So a lot of things left on the table for Georgia in this football game. There's no two ways about that. You fumbled near the goal line with Nate Frazier. Obviously, you have the fourth down call that people don't like at all. You have the drop touchdown. Alabama had, I think, 2 different drop touchdowns. It was a little bit all over the place. There's no doubt about that. But there's something here. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what happens to Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs when they see Alabama on the other sideline. But something happens, and they just don't play their level of football. They don't play as aggressive, they don't play as on the front foot, and they play just a little bit timid. And the other side, Alabama seems to feel uber confident whenever they see Georgia. So whatever that is, it's hard to describe. It's something that happens in college football every now and then, and this one's very, very real. There's no doubt about that. I do want to say something about Alabama before we get out of here. This is a really good team. They played some really good football on Saturday, and they should be very, very proud of that. As far as I'm concerned, they are still a week-by-week proposition with Kalen DeBoer, because if you'll remember last year, they got a huge win against Georgia, then went on the road and lost to Vanderbilt. Well, they get Vanderbilt at home this upcoming weekend. They are still a week-to-week proposition. They are still a team that you're going to have to watch every single week, because we saw what we saw against Florida State. Now, they've cleaned up a lot of that stuff. They've played so much better football, and they deserve a ton of respect for that. But it's not to say that's not in them still. So a lot of things still to figure out for Alabama, a lot of things that they need to just continue to tweak, continue to get better on, but that looks like the team to beat in the SEC, right up there with Ole Miss right now, and we'll talk about them here in a second. But for Georgia, you're still very good. On both sides of the ball, you are going to be good. Now, there's definitely some things that need to be fixed, particularly starting slow. You can't fall into holes against a team like Texas, or especially a team like Ole Miss later in the season, and expect to win that football game, but you should be okay. Definitely some tough games up ahead, but I still like this team to go 10-2 or better and find their way into the CFP. It's just one of those games where it's hard to describe. It really cannot be described in a lot of words. Georgia has an Alabama problem, and they got to figure it out one way or the other, or they're gonna get in their way of being able to compete for national titles, because you could very well run into this team again. And if you can't beat them right now, you might not be able to beat them then. But we'll talk about it more as it unfolds. I think Georgia's going to be more than fine for Alabama. Got to regroup and play a really good Vanderbilt team on Saturday. Ole Miss beats LSU by 5 points. They really beat LSU by about 13 or 14 points. This was, I don't want to say domination, but Ole Miss was literally I think 4 yards away from scoring that touchdown, but LSU was able to get the punch out, get a massive play, and take back over on offense. The reality of the matter is they should have been down quite a bit at halftime. I believe 21-7 would have been the score at halftime had they ended up scoring at that moment. I just think it was one of those games where the LSU that everyone had been talking about, the LSU that everyone had been saying, is this really a great team? Is this really a great offense, or is it a team that's just living by the skin of their teeth? It all kind of came to fruition in this game. They cannot run the ball for whatever reason. LSU cannot run the ball, and they haven't been able to the last couple of years. They have a team on the other side that isn't perfect by any means, but you have a guy like Trinidad Chambliss that can make all types of plays and can do all types of things. And they did a relatively good job against him, this defense, but the reality of the matter is you could not get off the field when you needed to on third down. Trinidad Chambliss goes for 385 total yards, 1 touchdown in this game. It's just one of those games that you look at Ole Miss right now, and I've seen a couple of people asking the question, and it's a fair question to ask. How is Ole Miss better than they were last year? You lost Jackson Dart, you lose Walter Nolan, you lose Chris Paul, you lose all of these incredible players on your defense and your offense. How in the world are they better at football this year? It's as simple as you have a run game. You now have a run game that you can work off of. You had 2 rushers over 70 yards in this football game, Keywan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss, obviously. You had 3 pass catchers over 60 yards, none of them over 100. You dominated the line of scrimmage. You really did a great job in this football game, just winning the margins, doing little things throughout this football game and running the football efficiently enough. Now, you take Trinidad Chambliss out of that equation, I don't know how it looks. There's no doubt about that. I think he helps that, and I think that's why he needs to be the quarterback moving forward for Ole Miss. But the reality of the matter is, when this team can run the football, when Lane Kiffin teams can run the football, they're going to be really hard to beat. And now they can run the football, and LSU just can't. And they got a big problem to figure out. There's no doubt about that. For Ole Miss, they get Washington State this upcoming weekend, weirdly enough, before a bye. And then it's at Georgia. That's a huge one. If they can find a way to win that game, then everything changes. They could go undefeated and become the number 1 team in the country. If they lose that game, then they're right back in the pack of just trying to find their way to the CFP. Still a very good team. Cannot say enough about what Ole Miss has been able to do this season, particularly with a guy coming in that you did not expect to be your starter going into the season. For LSU, Garrett Nussmeier's injured. There's just no doubt about that. I think if you're trying to deny that, you're lying to yourself. It doesn't take anything away from what Ole Miss and all the teams against LSU have been able to do, and it doesn't necessarily excuse LSU being this anemic on offense. It's just to say you're getting about 75, maybe 80% of Garrett Nussmeier right now. He is not throwing the ball confidently. He's not throwing it with the zip that he does. And frankly, if there's one thing I know about Garrett Nussmeier, he's going to rip the ball. That is the way he is. That is the way he plays football. He's not doing that right now. He's throwing kind of ducks, and it's obviously something physical. You never really know how severe it is, and frankly, I tend to believe he's still the guy that gives you the best chance to win, plain and simple. But the reality of the matter is, you got an injured quarterback, you have an offensive line that's not playing great football, you have a run game that is downright non-existent, you have a running back that's injured as well to go along with that. You're in trouble, plain and simple. There's a number of games that you have the ability to go out and win, find your way into the CFP, totally leave this one in the past, but this offense is playing terribly. If Garrett Nussmeier does not get healthy and really healthy really soon, you're going to have a problem. You're going to lose 3 more games, and you're going to be at the end of the season thinking, we left another one on the table. And not the offense this time. We left a really good defense on the table, and now Garrett Nussmeier's walking out the door. A lot of things to figure out for this football team. If Garrett Nussmeier gets healthy, a lot of things change in a hurry. That's just plain and simple. You still got to get a run game that can help him out, and an offensive line that can help him out in a big way. So that's plain and simple. We'll leave it there for the time being. For Ole Miss, you're probably the outright favorite in the SEC. I don't think you're the betting favorite just because that's how betting works. But at the end of the day, the job that Lane Kiffin's done has been downright incredible. Still a tough road ahead. There's no doubt about that. Still got Georgia. Still have, I believe, Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. Still have a number of big time games. But the one thing that I want to take away from this game is more than anything else. Ole Miss had an 11-play, 5-minute drive to close out this game, all runs except for one big-time pass from Trinidad Chambliss. That's something they couldn't do last year. Last year, they would have given the ball back to LSU, and that defense would have had to make a play to end that football game. The offense was able to just assault that one away. That is a huge, huge thing for this football team, and moving forward, they might not be a more talented football team. That's a better football team because they can run the football and win games in different ways, where last year they weren't throwing the football, they weren't scoring points, plain and simple. Incredible win by Ole Miss. They move up to very, very high in my top 25, and I'll get to that at the end of the show, but a number of things to love about Ole Miss. For LSU, a number of things to question. And finally, Illinois escapes against USC in really one of those games. We talked about it with Ole Miss. Probably should have been a 14-point win. This one probably should have been a 14-point win. Actually, I was thinking USC, if Illinois doesn't get punched out right at the goal line going into halftime, they're up 21-7 on USC going in, not 14-10. It totally changed the complexion of this football game and changed it from, man, Illinois is really tearing this team apart to USC's in this game. Let's see what happens in the second half. Now, here's the reality of the situation. You give Luke Altmaier the ball back with 2.5, 1.5, I don't care how much time. You give him, he's going to go win the game, plain and simple. He's done it every time and again throughout his career. He was clinical while doing it in this football game, and Illinois gets a win that they badly needed. This is a really incredible response from the offense that got downright pushed around a week ago. For the defense, I really don't think they played as bad as the box score shows. Now, obviously, they have some things to figure out, and the reality is I don't think they're going to be elite on that side of the ball, but the USC offense is always going to be pretty hard to contain. They did enough, and I think that's the big thing here for Illinois and for really every team in the country. We'll talk about that later. Doing enough is a massive win at this point. Let's just get wins and keep moving down the road. So for Illinois, you got to feel great. The schedule's still very wide open. At Purdue, then it's Ohio State, and at Washington. You find a way to win one of the Ohio State and Washington games, assuming that you're beating Purdue. If you find a way to win one of the Ohio State or Washington, you're still in a very solid position for a CFP berth. Now, a lot of mess is going to happen. I can promise you that, and we'll talk about that at the end of the show as well. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of things to like about this Illinois team. Still a little bit worried about what happens when they run into an offense and a defense that can slow them down just a little bit, but still a very interesting team that can put some really good things together. For USC, I just think they're going to fall a little bit short. I don't think this is a bad football team by any respect. I think the defense still isn't quite there, and I think that shouldn't be all that surprising for USC fans as of right now. You lost some big-time bodies in the offseason now. You add a guy like Jamal Jarrett. That has been absolutely huge for you. You add a Keyshawn Silver that I believe is going to be a great player, but the reality of the matter is you're going to have to get a whole lot better, a whole lot more talented, and that takes time. Now, I don't think they want to wait too much longer, so we'll see what happens throughout the rest of this season, but I think you have a team that continues to move in the right direction. I just think it's baby steps, and that's rather frustrating. But now you go to Michigan, you have Notre Dame on deck. Can you get one of those wins? Can you find a way to get one of those and at least keep a little bit of momentum? I don't think this is going to be your year, as some of you might have thought going in. I don't think this is going to be your year, but I don't think you're necessarily quite as far off as some people might say. That being said, I've said that for a number of years. So let's see what happens over the rest of the year for USC. A talented team, but a lot to figure out over there. The good news is you have Mekhi Lemon. Went for 11 catches, 151 yards, and 2 just ridiculous touchdowns in this football game. He's one of the best wide receivers in the country and a guy that no matter what, he's going to give you a shot in just about every football game you play, especially that Notre Dame game where I'm expecting an all-out shootout. But it's going to be really fun to watch what these two teams do because I think both these teams are alive. Now, I think both these teams are probably on the outside looking in from the upper echelon of the Big Ten, but there's plenty of an opening here. And Illinois being able to get up off the mat, find a way to win a game where it would have been really easy to fold late in that game, and a lot of teams would have. Illinois doesn't because they have a great head coach in Brett Bielema. They have a great leader in Luke Altmaier. Some incredible, incredible stuff from this football team, and really just an incredible weekend of really, really good football. Those 4 games obviously define the weekend in a number of ways, but at the end of the day, just incredible, incredible stuff from this group. Incredible stuff from Ty Simpson, from Dante Moore, from Trinidad Chambliss. Incredible from all those guys, and really adds a lot of confusion to the college football world, and we'll get into that when we get into the winners and losers towards the end. But let's do a little bit of a break here. When we come back, let's just talk about all the rest of it. We got Virginia, Florida State, Ohio State kind of dominating Washington, although it didn't look like that. Texas A&M sneaking out one against Auburn, and a number of other things right after this, so stick with us.